Hello from Pax Europiana. I'm here in Sarajevo at the Latin Bridge where the First World War started by the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. I'm on the 11th of July here. That's the Srebrenica Memorial plaque, and it's the Memorial Day for this terrible genocide which the Serb forces under Mladic have committed in 95. It's now 30 years of the end of the start of the Bosnian War, and it's also the year where Russia has attacked Ukraine and escalated the war against Ukraine. And it's, I think, a very meaningful moment to call for peace, to call for European unity, and for the defeat of Russian and Serbian aggression. Because we see it all over again. They have this imperialist, aggressive, colonialist agenda. They are ready to use war as a tool to increase their land holding, which Russia has already enough. But they do this terrible war, and they kill without mercy. They have destroyed Mariupol this year, similar like Mladic has done similar crimes to Srebrenica. And it's a horrible thing, a crime which is a war crime against humanity, genocide basically. And you see that in Russia basically today, since 2014 ultimately already, they are waging this terrible war. And you see the Serbian aggressiveness against Montenegro, against Bosnia, against Kosovo. They have mobilized the troops in 2021, just basically half a year ago, and the Serbs against Kosovo, and they are now bullying all the countries, and Europe is unfortunately standing aside and letting it happen. This is absolutely wrong. What we need to do is to stand united together in NATO, offer Kosovo and Bosnia and Ukraine security, because security is the fundament of prosperity. And when it's threatened by aggressors, by assassinations, by warmongers like Russia and Serbia, we have to be united, and we have to secure the fragile periphery from Kosovo, Bosnia, and from, of course, Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia. It was very good to give them the potential the EU candidate status in the case of Ukraine, and I was very happy about it. And it was a long overdue step. We could have avoided the war escalation in 2022 if we did that in 2017, as I said already. But we didn't, and so we faced this terrible war. But now we also have to give Ukraine the security of NATO. Because as you see, when there is no working Western alliance system, then everything can go bonkers, as it went in the First World War, and it was terrible war, and it was a horror. It was not a great war, it was the terrible war, the First World War, and the Second War, and even worse. And it all happened because there was no security in the fragile periphery between Russia and the Soviet Union and today's Putin's empire and the West. And we need to have clarity here. It must be part of the West if they wish so, like Bosnia does, like Kosovo does, like Ukraine does. And the appeasement policy of the last 20 years, Ostpolitik or Merkel's politik, this kind of let's give them some, sacrifice them some land and some people in Eastern Europe, and then we don't care, and that is absolutely failed. It has led to the escalation of the war 2020. So unity matters. I'm now here on the 11th of July because the great failure of our Bosnian policies in the year from 91 to 95, when Alois Mok has already called for the recognition for the defense of Bosnia, if we had acted earlier, and if we had intervened in 92, when most of the atrocities were starting already in full escalation, remember the concentration camp of Omarska and all the horrors of ethnic cleansing in Bielina and in Prijedor and in Gorazde, they were already happening in 92. It's not that suddenly in 95 there was genocide. This was a constant war against the Bosnian Muslims. It happened permanently, and it's very similar to what Russia is doing today to Ukraine. So I call for solidarity between Ukraine and Bosnia. I call for Ukraine to recognize Kosovo. I call for military intervention of the West in Ukraine, obviously similar like in Bosnia, with a limited measure, not to bomb, not to go so far as we did it justifiedly in the Kosovo war because of the nuclear deterrent of Russia, but also we should intervene very clearly in the Ukraine war militarily. west of the Dnieper, to reconquer, liberate Kherson and Zaporizhia Oblast and Mariupol. And then we will also always remember the Mariupol genocide, similar to the Srebrenica genocide. And that's my call here, that I will explain more, because it needs to be explained that Russia is a genocidal power and must be ostracized from all world institutions as such, and must be boycotted completely, similar as Serbia was in 92 to 96, and should have kept so, because the moment we released the pressure on genocidal Milosevic, he immediately started the next war in 97, 98, 99 in Kosovo, and then it needed another intervention to end that and to save the people of Kosovo from genocide and complete ethnic expulsion from their territory. So that's my call here this morning. It's a very historic place. I hope I was clear enough. I call for peace by unity, leading to victory by the West with Ukraine, Kosovo and Bosnia, the three victims of the Russian and Serbian aggression. And we need to stop genocide in Ukraine today, as we should have stopped genocide early on. Some people criticize me for calling out Mr. Clinton. He was watching for 3 years. He was then intervening in 95 after the marketplace and after the shelling of the municipality building. Then ultimately they intervened with NATO when Jacques Chirac was elected and Clinton was taking on the mantle of American leadership and of human rights again. But for 3 years he failed the people of Gorazde, Srebrenica, Sarajevo. It was a terrible siege here in Sarajevo, and it was a horror actually what happened, and we should have acted earlier, as we should have acted earlier in Ukraine. We're always so reluctant to use military force to stop aggression, and then the people on the European periphery at this fragile blood and borderlands between Russia and the West, and they lose their lives and they pay with blood, and they have to fight for themselves, because we only reluctantly and very lately intervene and help them. So I call for military intervention in Ukraine to stop Russian aggression, not against Russia directly, but they have absolutely no reason to be there. There is no justification, and they must be militarily confronted, and Ukraine must be integrated into NATO to be secure for the long term, the same like for Bosnia. Thanks a lot. More to come from Pax Europiana on this historic day, the 11th of July 2022. Please support Bosnia in NATO. Thanks a lot. Bye.